Welcome to Cooking Wild. Today I'm going to make fried catfish with Hushpuppies and fried cabbage in bacon. For our dessert, we're going to have homemade pecan pie. So stick around because we're cooking wild. So I'm going to get ready to fry my fish. I've got some catfish that's cleaned and rinsed, and I have my fish fry mix. This is just like the Cajun style or the New Orleans style mix. And I've got peanut oil heating in my cast iron pan, and it's got to get to 350. I have a little temperature gauge clipped on here for frying. So while that is heating up, I'm going to go ahead and start battering some of my fillets. Last season, we made crappie, and I used mustard as the base for crappie, but we're just going to use a wet fillet and put in our batter on the catfish. So as I batter them, I'm going to lay them right over here. Whenever I was growing up, one of the very worst spankings I ever received in my life centered around catfish, ironically. We lived out in the country, and I was probably about 7 or 8, and me and my brother had been down at the creek, and it was the middle of the summer, and the creek had pretty much dried out. So all that was left was like a big mud hole, and there were little baby mud cats flopping around in there. We were going to catch them. So we took our shoes and socks off and got in there, and they were finning our feet. So I got the bright idea that we would go back up to the house and get Mama's sheets and pillowcases off of the line, and then we could seine the creek with the sheet and put the fish in the pillowcase. Such a brilliant idea. So we went up and got our sheets and pillowcases, which were white. They were hanging on the line, and we went down and seined the creek and filled that pillow sack full of little mud cats. And I was so proud of myself carrying it up to the house, and my mama was standing on the porch as we were coming up, and I was holding my bag of fish like, look what we got, Mama. And I was so proud. She grabs that bag of catfish and starts beating me with it. Like, I got beat down with the pillow sack full of baby catfish. Not for seining the creek necessarily, but for using her white sheets and pillowcases to do it. And I always tease and joke because there's 4 of us girls and there's 1 boy. So he was always babied and the favored. So I always tease and joke when I tell that story that I got beat with the sack of fish and my mom cooked them for my brother. Which I don't think she cooked them for him, but I don't think he got beat either. So until you've been beat with a pillow sack full of catfish, you've never really been beat. So we have our oil pretty much to temperature. We're going to cook it at 350. This is peanut oil. So I'm going to go ahead and put our first few pieces in. I'm going to try not to overcrowd the pan so they'll fry up real well. So I'm just going to put a couple in at a time. So I've just got a couple pieces in right now because I don't want to overcrowd my pan. And the more you put in, the quicker it brings down the temperature of your oil. So I've just got a couple pieces in there, and I'm gonna flip them over. So we've got a couple pieces in, and we're gonna let those fry up for a few minutes. Generally, they'll start floating to the top. That's how you know that they're done. But you can also use a meat thermometer and measure the internal temperature. You want them to be about 150 degrees internally. And then we'll get them out and continue battering up our fillets and frying them.
Whether your roads are dirt, paved, or if you're blazing new trails, the roads we travel lead to all of our most cherished places and people. Bravado Wireless strives to keep you connected wherever the roads may take you. We are the leader in wireless mobility and connection in Oklahoma and across the nation. We carry some of the market's top cell phone brands, fast, reliable home internet, and even greater customer service. Locally owned and operated right here in eastern Oklahoma. So whatever roads you travel, Bravado Wireless has them covered. From beginning to end. We are Bravado Wireless, and we believe in the power of connection.
So while our last 2 pieces of catfish are in the fryer, I'm gonna go ahead and mix up our Hush Puppy mix. This is just 2 boxes of the sweetened cornbread mix. I use this primarily because my kids like it. They like that sweetened mix. And I'm going to add, this is a tablespoon of onion powder and a tablespoon of Creole. I'm gonna add that and whisk that in real well. I have 2 eggs and a half a cup of milk. So we have that mixed together well, and I'm gonna add in 2 tablespoons of minced up jalapenos. And I'm gonna go ahead and pull our last 2 pieces of fish out the fryer, and then we'll start putting Hush Puppies in. Okay, we've got our fish out of the fryer. I'm just gonna use this cookie scoop or ice cream scoop for my Hush Puppies. I believe it's 2 tablespoons. It just makes it easier to put it into the hot oil. So we're just gonna drop about 6 or 8 in there, not a lot, and then just let them cook up a few minutes, and then we'll flip them and let them brown up. So a while back I had gotten on internet, I was looking up different Hush Puppy recipes, and of course anytime you look up a recipe nowadays there's like a backstory to it, and it was telling how the origination of the actual phrase Hush Puppy came about. I'm not sure how true it is or not, but it said that basically the old timers would sit around their campfire, and after they would fry up their fish for the day, they would take what was left of their cornmeal mixture and drop it into the oil to make little treats for their dogs. And they would toss them, you know, like hush puppy. So supposedly that is where the terminology come from. I just thought it was kind of a cool story. I'm not sure if it's true or not, but that's where the hush puppy name supposedly originated from. So we just pulled our hush puppies out of the grease and we've got our main course finished, and we're gonna go ahead and get started on the homemade pecan pie. We'll be right back. So for our side today, I'm gonna make fried cabbage, and I am gonna fry it in bacon and the bacon grease that cooks off of it. So I've got a pound of bacon cut up here, and I'm gonna go ahead and get it in my preheated cast iron skillet. I'm gonna let this cook down till it's almost all the way done before I put my cabbage in. And all of the bacon grease will have cooked off, and then I'll put all my cabbage in and season it, and then we'll fry it. It's gonna take just a few minutes for this to cook down. So growing up, my mom had restaurants off and on all of our lives. And one time in one of her restaurants, one of her little waitresses, she had went into the kitchen to start making a salad. And Mom had like several heads of lettuce, several heads of cabbage. And I'm not sure if y'all know this or not, but you can take a head of lettuce and hit it right on the end where the stem is at. Just hit it real hard and it'll just pop that stem loose, and you pull it out, and then you just have the lettuce head. So her little waitress had gone in there, and Mom said she could just hear like thumping and thumping and thumping, and she could not figure out what was going on. And she went in there, and her waitress had a head of cabbage and was just pounding it away trying to get that thing to break out of it. And it was cabbage, and she thought it was lettuce, and it was so funny. So that's one of my funny stories. So I've got my bacon cooked down about to where I like it, and all of the grease is cooked out mostly. So I'm gonna go ahead and start adding my cabbage. And I've just given it a rough chop. This cabbage will cook down a lot. It's got a lot of water in it. So this is just approximately like one large size head. I'm gonna let this cook down a little bit before I add the rest of it, but I am gonna go ahead and add some salt and pepper. And you're basically just stir frying it in the bacon grease. Just gonna let this cook down a few minutes and then I'll add the rest of the cabbage. And I do have some reserved bacon grease here in case I need to add some more. I usually keep bacon grease anytime I cook it because I use it a lot when I'm cooking. Put it in green beans and I make my gravy, my breakfast gravy with bacon grease, so I save it. One of our sides that we're gonna have today, it's just leftover pinto beans or brown beans. I had made them yesterday in the crock pot. Just crock pot, water on high, salt, and bacon grease for about 8 hours. And so I just have what's left over from yesterday, and it's just gonna pair really well with our cabbage and our fried catfish. We always had beans and fried potatoes anytime we had fish, but we had it a lot just by themselves, and it's still one of my favorite meals growing up. I'm gonna go ahead and add the rest of my cabbage now that it's starting to cook down some. And I'm gonna add just a little bit more salt and a little bit more pepper. So one of the things about living in rural Oklahoma and where I am is don't have a lot of easy access to stores, and they're not really close to our houses. So I've learned to just substitute when I'm out of certain ingredients, or just make my own because it's easier than to have to go all the way into town to get one thing. Buttermilk is an example. A lot of people don't keep it or carry it often because it will go bad fast if you're not using it. So if I'm ever in a pinch and need buttermilk, I just take lemon juice or vinegar and put it in my whole milk, leave it out on the counter room temperature, and it will make buttermilk. And you just learn to substitute things like that in different recipes just when you're in a pinch and just to make your life a lot easier. So that's just one of the little tricks that I do whenever I'm needing buttermilk. Speaking of buttermilk, a funny story just the other night. I hear my 8-year-old in the kitchen literally gagging. It was like at bedtime, 8:30 or 9. I hear him gagging, and I go in there, and he had taken chocolate Nestle powder and mixed it in a big cup of buttermilk and had drank it. He gagged for about 30 minutes. He was like, "It's rotten, this milk is bad." It was so funny. Up until just probably 3-4 years ago, I'd never eaten cabbage in my entire life. My mom cooked it the whole time we were growing up. Boiled cabbage, fried cabbage, cabbage rolls, egg roll. I mean, any way you could cook it because it's cheap and it goes a long way. I would never eat it just solely based on the smell of it. And finally, about 3 or 4 years ago, I ate some fried cabbage and I was in heaven, and it's been like my favorite thing since then. It's so good. It does not taste anything like it smells. Like growing up when you're in school, you always smelled the sauerkraut on the days they made sauerkraut at school, and it was horrible smelling. I always associated that smell with cabbage because generally speaking, most things taste like they smell. Cabbage is an exception to that rule. So good. And it's really healthy for you if it's not fried in a pound of bacon grease. So we're gonna let this cook down for a few minutes and then we will be right back.
From nationwide coverage to live high school sports to the great outdoors and so much more, we've got something for you. We're a local wireless carrier right here in Oklahoma. We work for your town, in your town. But great cell phone signal in rural areas is just scratching the surface. We also broadcast live events from all over eastern Oklahoma. High school football, basketball, baseball, dirt track races, livestock shows, and community events. Everything to keep you connected in your community. We're also producing original shows like Connect Outdoors and Cooking Wild that shines a light on real Oklahoman experiences. You can find us at bravadowireless.com, or you can search for us on Facebook or YouTube. You can even find us on the Oklahoma Sports Network. You can download their app straight to your phone, Apple TV, Smart TV, or Roku. We don't just create for Oklahoma, we are Oklahoma. We're Bravado Wireless, Oklahoma's service provider.
Planning a weekend away in your camper? Take your Bravado Wireless home internet with you. Right now, our most popular internet plan has been chopped. While other internet providers are stuck at home with all of those wires and your obnoxious neighbor, Hank, you are free to take your wireless router to your home away from home. Visit us at bravadowireless.com to find a store near you. We are Bravado Wireless, and we believe in the power of connection.
So today for dessert, we are going to make homemade pecan pie. I have got a pre-made crust just because they're easier a lot of the times. You can make a homemade crust if you want. This is just a frozen pie crust. I've got 1 cup of granulated sugar. I have 1 cup of Karo syrup or corn syrup. You can use the light or the dark, just whatever your preference is. I have 3 eggs, a teaspoon of vanilla, 2 tablespoons of melted butter, and I have about 1.5 cups, 1.75 cups of whole pecans. You can give them a rough chop if you prefer. I just like the whole, but it's entirely up to you. We're just gonna mix this up really well, and then I'm gonna pour it into my crust. And we're gonna bake it at 350 for about 60 to 70 minutes. Just make sure that you put your pie pan on another pan underneath in case it cooks over, it doesn't drop to the bottom and burn. When we were younger and growing up, there's 4 of us girls, 4 girls and 1 boy. My mom always made pecan pie for like holidays and stuff. And I remember us all being in the kitchen and she was teaching us how to make pecan pie. And my younger sisters, which is 4 years younger than me, had come in there after one was already like baked. And she asked my mom how she got the pie, the pecan pieces perfectly on top of the pie. She didn't realize that they like float to the surface. She thought that my mom had like strategically put every little pecan on the top. It was so funny. So yes, the pecans float. Okay, I've got this mixed up. I'm gonna go ahead and pour it into my pie shell, and then we'll get it in the oven at 350. I'm gonna put this in the oven at 350 for about an hour, 10 minutes. Then we'll pull it out and let it cool off. I hope you enjoyed cooking with me today. For more meals and other original shows, head over to bravadowireless.com. I'm Amber, and we've been cooking wild.